morning. Welcome to the Community Voice. I'm Steve Braddock, your host. Delighted to have you with us on this beautiful Monday, somewhat rainy Monday morning. And our sponsor this morning is Tanner Health System, and we're delighted to have them with us. And so, with that, I'd like to introduce to you Jim Beck, candidate for Insurance and Safety Fire Commissioner for the great state of Georgia. Good morning, Jim.
Hey, good morning. Thanks for being here. You know, it's this full circle, Stevie.
Why is that?
You know, I have actually had the honor of anchoring, and at my size, I mean anchoring,
Yes.
this desk.
Literally.
Yeah, literally.
And it's a big desk.
Yeah, it's a nice size desk.
It's a nice size
But it
desk.
was a good size anchor when I was sitting on behind it, too. So.
We'd like to welcome people to join us on Facebook Live, News Talk 1330. And if you have any comments or questions, you can post us there. You can give us a call, although I think I have a suspicion about our phone system right now. Uh-oh. But with that said, thanks for listening, and let's jump right into it. You're a candidate for Insurance and Safety Fire Commissioner in the state of Georgia, but you're also a local guy.
I am. I'm in Burwell. People who've been here a while know where Burwell is.
Now, where is Burwell?
It's between Carrollton.
The Burwell community.
The Burwell community, yeah. Shallow Church is kind of the anchor. Scott East, mayor, unincorporated, but we still.
Someday you will.
Yeah, that's only a matter of time. Exactly.
So tell us something about your family and what motivated you to run.
So I have been. I came to Carroll County in 1979 to go to college, and had the opportunity to go to work for Carroll Realty and Insurance. Carroll Realty, where I had a chance to. Learn a little bit about the insurance business. I worked for a guy named Woodford Cole, the Cole family. They're still now involved with the company, still involved. Matter of fact, it's the third generation Cole. Wood Cole worked for me as an intern when he graduated from Mississippi State. So I've had the opportunity to learn a little bit about the insurance business. I love the insurance business because at its core, it's a promise business. And I always thought, you know, we need more promise keeping. So, but I've been here. I started a little marketing company. I had a chance to work for you when you owned the radios. Or still, I guess you still own the radio stations, but
I don't know. It's a day-to-day.
It's a growing thing. It was it's ever-growing empire. So I had a chance to work for you, and lived on the same street for 32 years.
All right, very good. And I understand you're also an author.
I am. I've written a book. I wrote a book about a year or two ago called Standing Up, A Consumer's Guide to Insurance. And it basically kind of gives the consumer a primer on how to pick an agent, how to pick a company, how to pick, how to file a claim, how to navigate business insurance, auto insurance, and home insurance, and also how to fight fraud in insurance, because that's a big deal. And as I may have shared with you earlier, Steve, it's because, I try to live my faith. And it actually has an altar call at the end. My publisher said it's the first self-help book on insurance he ever saw with a call to a relationship with Christ. And I said to him, well, that's the greatest fire insurance policy you can buy,
And you've been a member of Tabernacle
Baptist Church for many years, served on the deacon board there. And so just, and I have a one son, Jimmy Beck Jr., 26, who is involved with a radio broadcast on Fridays and does corporate and social communications for Arby's, and so their headquarters in Atlanta. So I'm like right here, man. This is it. I mean, I know where Clem is. I know where Roosterville is. I know where all those places are.
And he heads up Braddock Sports Twitter.
Yes, he does, and I think he does an admirable job. But that's for you to decide.
More than admirable. So if I said to you insurance is boring, would you be offended?
No, not at all. No, it should be boring. When it works well, it shouldn't be very exciting. The idea of an insurance policy to me is if you think about it, insurance is kind of what makes the world run. You back in the old days, back before trial lawyers were so prevalent, you had billboards and everything. You really had to ask yourself, can I come up with a product or a service and sell it at a profit? Well, now you have to ask yourself, can I get insurance to insure me in case some knucklehead sues me? Because there really is a war on success in America. And not to get too deep in the weeds, but there is a growing, I think, idea that if somebody is financially successful, that they must have gotten it by hook or crook, instead of earned it the way, that we think that they accumulated, for the most part.
Which is practically always by hard work.
I mean, it's kind of like Neil Bortz, the talk show host, used to say, if you're willing to get up in the dark and go to work and come home in the dark, you're going to be successful in America, right, for the most part. So it's I think that what's happened is a lot of people that are in business, especially small businesses, people see your business name on the truck, and if they have any kind of interaction with you, then, it's a chance for a big payout. I did ask, in the book, make a comment that what would America look like if, when our forefathers had gotten to St. Louis and the axle broke on the wagon, instead of fixing the axle and moving on, they'd stopped, put newspaper ads for try to gather other people with broken axles and form class action lawsuits against axle manufacturers. So anyway, insurance is a critical part of sharing some of that risk and trying to make it a little more predictable, whether it's for a business or for your home. Most people couldn't, 80% of all homes that are bought in America have mortgages. And so that you wouldn't have a mortgage if you didn't have an insurance policy.
Well, you spent, the last year traveling the state?
Well, just since July, Lucy and I have gone over 11,000 miles, and we haven't left Georgia.
11,000 miles?
Just since July.
Wow.
My volunteer team and I have participated in over 1,200 meetings since August of last year when we got started. We've been really blessed. The Lord's brought a lot of really good people along to help us, and we've had a good little kitchen cabinet advisory team. We've had people that will go out and represent us at meetings and things like that. So it's really been quite a humbling experience, to be honest with you.
So of all the questions I want to ask this morning, this one really, to me, is the most important. What have the voters and the people of Georgia been saying to you on the campaign trail?
People are very frustrated with the health insurance situation. It's just not sustainable for a variety of reasons. So I hear a lot about that. I hear a lot from people who say, look, I would go into business tomorrow, but I'm driving a school bus in the mornings to make sure I have insurance. So, and frankly, for small business people who are trying to do the right thing by their employees, it's getting increasingly almost impossible to provide insurance coverage. So that is one thing I hear a lot about. The other thing, because if you think about it, it's the fear factor, right? I mean, you know what a car costs if you have a wreck. You know what probably a house costs if, God forbid, it were to burn. You don't know what the fine folks at Tanner are going to need to put you back on your feet after some major trauma, or an illness. So it's the unknown, and it's scaring people. The other thing that I hear a lot about is auto insurance. Georgia auto insurance rates have gone up twice as fast as the national average for the past 3 years. The average auto insurance rate increase in Georgia and the country is 5.5%. In Georgia, it's over 11%. And there's and we can get into the details of that, but there's some reasons for that. But I hear auto insurance and I hear health insurance. Those are the two big things I hear about.
All right. Before we take our first break, tomorrow's the big day. Are you confident?
Yeah, I feel good. It's difficult to poll because this is one of those elections that they tell you that young people are going to turn out in a higher number than is proportionate. Hard to survey young people because they don't always have landlines. Gosh, a lot of older people I know don't have landlines anymore. But I think Kemp will do well. I think he'll probably end up about 53, 54%. We should do a little bit better than that simply because my message is kind of a nonpartisan message in some respects. I am a Republican, but it's protect consumers, make sure companies are solvent, make sure they can honor their promises, and that's almost a message that transcends party line because everybody wants that. So,
all right, very good. Our guest this morning is Jim Beck. He's candidate for Insurance and Safety Fire Commissioner for the great state of Georgia. We're going to come back, talk about day one priorities after this word from Tanner Health System.
We're advancing health throughout West Georgia and East Alabama because we know that exceptional care isn't based on how many patients we serve, but how well we serve them. That's why we're focused on quality, delivering the best possible care for our patients. It's why we're expanding our clinical services and building new facilities to serve our growing community. And it's why we're looking beyond our hospitals and medical practices to develop sustainable wellness and preventive health programs in our region. What makes a hospital great has changed. It's not how many beds we have. It's how well we care for the neighbors who need them. Delivering the right care to every patient, every time, is how Tanner is advancing health with medicine beyond measure. Learn more at tanner.org or find a physician on our medical staff by calling 770-214-CARE.
Good morning. Welcome back to the Community Voice. I'm Steve Gradick, your host. Delighted to have you with us this morning. We're very honored to have in studio the candidate for the Insurance and Safety Fire Commissioner for the great state of Georgia. He's been traveling the state for a year with his lovely wife, Lucy.
Yeah, Carroll, the pride. I'd like to be called the pride of Carroll County. Think we can get that going?
Who, for Lucy?
Oh, very funny.
Yeah.
Thanks, Steve.
Yeah, you're John
You're
Kennedy.
the best,
I
man.
accompanied I accompanied Lucy all across the state.
Exactly.
Well, it's true.
It is true.
All right. If you should be so deemed to be the next commissioner by the voters of the great state of Georgia, all right. What would be one of the first things you'd like to do upon taking office?
Well, Steve, let me say something about you and the radio stations that I should have said in the beginning. I apologize for not doing this because I never want it to go unsaid how tremendously proud I am of what you do here and your team, because as I travel the state, community radio stations are kind of a dying breed. And maybe I feel more passionately about this because I come from that background, but I will tell you that you're kind of the glue that holds the community together. Because it's, we share football games together. We share, that when that Carrollton player was injured, we all gasped together. It's just it's just nice to have that. So, and I know you don't want me to, you're kind of a modest guy, but it's not easy to hold all this together. By the fact, I saw the squirrel running at full tilt in the cage as I was trying to power this place. But yeah, you thank y'all for what you do, absolutely.
Well,
but day one priorities.
Day one priorities.
So first thing we're going to do, day one priorities, we're going to double the penalties on any company that defrauds a senior or an honorably discharged veteran. Our veterans, we have given a lot of lip service to our veterans, but we want to make sure that companies know that if they tread into the area of mistreating a senior or a veteran, they're going to pay a heavy price. My grandmother was a victim of an unscrupulous insurance agent. When I was in my 20s, an agent sold her a worthless life insurance policy, and it robbed her of her peace of mind and her dignity, and frankly, it robbed her of about half what little money she had. And even if we could replace the money, we couldn't replace her peace of mind. So these predatory practices that some insurance companies engage in, and they're not many, but the ones that are there, even the good companies want those gone. Those kind of folks gone.
Are they mainly manifested in bad insurance policies?
It's insurance policies that are unsuitable. Like in the case of my grandmother, and it's still a problem. In the case of my grandmother, she would have had to live to be about 110 years old to make it financially suitable. Because what's happened is in a low interest rate environment, seniors have looked for more ways to try to bring income in, and so they have been lured into more exotic investments. Long-term care, those of us who are fortunate enough to have long-term care, I hear a lot about that. People worry about will it be there. But anyway, so day one priorities is I want to double the penalties on seniors and veterans, that companies that defraud them, to protect them. The other thing that I want to do is I want to make rate increases transparent. Because right now what happens is the companies make a filing, and they have lunch with the commissioner, and they have lunch with the staff. They say, we really need this. Everybody has a great lunch, and they walk out the door. Well, what I want to do is hold town hall hearings, just like you're streaming this on Facebook. I want to hold town hall hearings so that the policyholders can hear the stories about why more rate might be needed, so that the insurance agents, so that the lawyers out there that are watching for people that misrepresent things, I want to make it a lot more transparent than it has been. I think that if we can make rate increase proposals transparent, listen, people are reasonable. If you've treated them fairly in a claim and things have gone up and things do go up, they're fairly reasonable folks. The other thing I want to do is reinstate rolling regional offices. Back in the old days, when I ran Consumer Services Division in the 90s at the Department of Insurance, we would send people out to the courthouses to meet with folks and to help them with their issues. Especially on health insurance, that can be a pretty voluminous file when you bring it in.
How long since we've had regional offices, and where do you propose to put them?
8 years. They'll be rolling. So what we'll do is we'll literally try to get them to come to the counties where people need to meet. So obviously Carroll County, I'm a little prejudiced, but Carroll County would be, or Bremen, somewhere in the central area would be kind of a place to have one. And it wouldn't be a permanent brick and mortar office because of the expense. You know, you can do everything with a laptop these days. So it's a matter of having an investigator go out and meet people. So those would be some of the other thing I want to do is put the number of complaints an insurance company gets online. In other words, the Department of Insurance maintains a database of how many complaints a company has gotten. So what I wanted you to do is be able to go online on the website and see that this company has, on a per thousand policy basis, gotten so many complaints. So you can rank them yourself.
Okay, well, then let's talk a little bit about auto insurance rates.
Yeah.
That's a concern that you're hearing across the state, right?
Yeah, absolutely, because what's happening is, I mean, honestly, we do live in a situation where if you're making $12, $15 an hour, if you're lucky enough to make that, and by the time you pay your auto insurance, by the time you pay for gas, you know, and you're kind of broke. And so the car insurance thing has kind of gotten out of hand. I think there's some reasons for that need to be addressed. And the other thing that I'm finding is a lot of people say, yeah, I have minimum limits, but when I have an accident, I can't even fix my car for the amount of money. So they wind up totaling it. And that just puts the consumer and the company, frankly, in a deeper hole. So I think what's got to happen on the auto insurance rates, cars are more complicated. I mean, there are there's more computing power in that car you drive out there probably than NASA used to put a man on the moon.
Right.
And plant the American flag, by the way, unlike
Right.
that stupid movie that doesn't show the planting of the American
I
flag.
think they were using a 286 computer.
Yeah, well, now you would know that,
Yeah,
but I'm telling
still.
you, there's a lot of computing power in your car compared to then. So what's happened is when you have an accident, that's expensive to fix. But
Isn't there also an issue of control over where you can take the car or how you can go about having it fixed if you do?
That's called steering, and it's a real concern. But there's also a real concern on steering in healthcare because it's getting to the point where when you start to have a surgical procedure, they make you wait so that they have a chance to call you and say, well, you need to go to this place or that place. Well, we have a lot of independent surgical centers, that can do non-emergency surgeries. And frankly, we need to have competition across the street. As a Republican, over the years, you hear people talk about competition across state lines with insurance policies for health insurance. Well, the truth is we need competition across the street. We need Tanner's a great hospital, don't get me wrong, but they're even better when they have competition. Everything is better when you have competition.
You support a federal waiver called 1332 State Innovation Waiver. What is that?
So under the Obamacare administration, first of all, Obamacare has been an absolute disaster for our economy. We were told, if you want your doctor, you can keep. If you like your doctor, you can keep it. But yet doctors have gone out of business at alarming rates because they don't want to. I lost two doctors right here in Carrollton, both retired, Dr. Gentry and Dr. Welburn, because they said, look, I don't have $250,000 to invest in technology that's going to be required. So they sold their practice to the hospital, and I think they're now both retired. Well, I know they're both retired. So you've seen a lot of doctor consolidations because of that. But the 1332 waiver is something that initially I think the Trump administration was trying to figure out how do we undo Obamacare in a way that we're not keeping it going. But a 1332 waiver allows the state to do things with that federal money that is pretty innovative. For example, in Wisconsin, they have a high-risk pool. If you're an insurance company, you can kind of anticipate how many times people are going to get a head cold. What you can't figure out is how many times they're going to need a heart-lung transplant, right?
Mm-hmm.
So what Secretary Kemp has proposed is a high-risk pool so that if you have maybe $250,000 out-of-pocket lifetime expense, then the insurance company has a place that they can go and draw down money, almost like a reinsurance. So that would be one good thing to do. It's worked in Maryland. I think it's worked in Texas. I know it's worked in Wisconsin. So the 1332 waiver allows you to draw down money for that purpose. Frankly, if you expanded Medicaid right now, it would be the cruelest of all tricks to pull on people because 57% of doctors say they wouldn't see more patients if you expanded Medicaid because the reimbursement rates are low. As a matter of fact, the private pay people that have insurance through their company, actually subsidize the indigent care. And as a Christian, I'm prepared to do that. But I like it to be a little more transparent, and I'd like everybody to be a part of that, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because I happen to think anybody in Georgia is part of subsidizing as a person of faith. If you have somebody come in hurting, a child hurting, you ought to take care of them, right?
Mm-hmm.
Even if they can't afford the insurance.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, we've got to figure out a way to let us all play in that expense. It's just like roads. I mean, you wouldn't only expect to tax people that drive a car. I mean, because a lot of people benefit from roads. Well, anytime you go to the grocery store, that food got there. Even if you don't have a car, even if you Uber to the grocery store, then that food got there on a road that was paid for by the taxpayers, all of us.
Do you think, since the foundation of Obamacare is still there, and it seems like, that's not going to go away, that ultimately we're going to end up with a so-called single-payer socialized medicine system?
I don't think we will in the next. I'm assuming Trump will be reelected. Quite frankly, I was with the president in a rally in Macon. It was unbelievable. The crowds were like probably 50, 60,000.
That was just yesterday.
Yeah, it was yesterday in Savannah. Yeah, I mean in Macon. Yeah, and it was packed.
Tell us, just because we always hear differing tunes to that. How packed was it?
We'll put it this way: people started lining up at 6 in the morning. I mean, in a substantial fashion. At 4 o'clock, they were running 4 shuttle buses continuously, each going a mile and turning around and coming back, dropping people off. So you can do that pretty quickly. They ran 4 full-size shuttle buses, school buses. They ran them from 6 in the morning until 4 in the afternoon, and they still had people waiting in line that they couldn't bus to the site. Probably they had 5,000, 6,000 people that could not get in. So it was an amazing thing to watch. And listen, I mean, whether you agree or disagree with the president, and I say this even when Obama was president, the president of our country deserves respect. And when the Air Force One flies in, I don't care who's on it. The world knows that the most powerful nation in the world is in the building.
All right, our guest this morning is Jim Beck, candidate for Insurance and Safety Fire Commissioner for the great state of Georgia. We're going to be back in a moment after this word.
We're advancing health throughout West Georgia and East Alabama because we know that exceptional care isn't based on how many patients we serve, but how well we serve them. That's why we're quality, delivering the best possible care for our patients. It's why we're expanding our clinical services and building new facilities to serve our growing community. And it's why we're looking beyond our hospitals and medical practices to develop sustainable wellness and preventive health programs in our region. What makes a hospital great has changed. It's not how many beds we have. It's how well we care for the neighbors who need them. Delivering the right care to every patient, every time, is how Tanner is advancing health with medicine beyond measure. Learn more at tanner.org or find a physician on our medical staff by calling 770-214-CARE.
Welcome back to the Community Voice. I'm Steve Gradick, your host. Delighted to have you with us on this beautiful, albeit somewhat cloudy and tomorrow rainy days. But looks like everything is going well. And we're honored to have in studio Jim Beck, candidate for Insurance and Safety Fire Commissioner for the great state of Georgia. And when we talk about the Insurance Commissioner of Georgia, we rarely, if ever, hear about the role as Fire Commissioner. And I want to take a minute and find out what in the world does that mean.
So the insurance commissioner, insurance safety fire, you're right. The insurance safety fire commissioner often is overlooked, the fire side. The insurance safety fire commissioner position, actually most of the bodies that work for the insurance department are in the safety fire division.
Really?
It's a much bigger physical division than the insurance department.
Why is that?
Well, because you have inspections. So you have to have people that go look at propane tanks, propane facilities, liquefied gas.
Gas pump.
Gas pumps as to fire protection.
Okay.
But now, obviously, Gary Black does the
So
weights and measures.
agriculture, yeah.
But you also have schools, prisons. A school, before it can be opened in Georgia, has to have a fire marshal sign off on it.
So about how many people in that office?
There are a total of about 240.
So they
in fire, there's probably 130, 40.
Really?
Yeah, it's huge. It's huge. And they inspect elevators. That's a new thing in the last couple of years. They inspect elevators. So when you get on the elevator, you'll see the current commissioner's name there.
But they inspect it for fire hazard.
Inspected for safety. Elevators also safety. Carnival rides.
Ah,
So when a
my
carnival
favorite.
ride shows up, when the tilt-a-whirl shows up.
Yeah.
I can see you on a tilt-a-whirl.
I am.
Braddock.
Yeah, I'm all about it.
But when the tilt-a-whirl shows up, at our age, the inner ear, we can't do that.
No, it's too high up.
It's too high up. Yeah.
My ears decompress.
That's right. So it's just a variety of things. Prisons, you have to inspect prisons. I mean, it's amazing how many things that the insurance commissioner and safety fire commissioner's office are responsible for.
We do a lot of stories about the IO rating, I believe it is.
ISO.
ISO.
Insurance Service Organization.
And what the heck is that?
So the Insurance Service Organization is a rating. It's first of all, ISO is a private entity.
Okay.
A lot of people think of that as some kind of a government thing, but it's a private entity. So the insurance companies subscribe to a rating service that basically say, go out and tell us how good that fire department is. And by the way, Carrollton and Carroll County have wonderful fire departments. The community is invested in the equipment that's needed, the training that's needed to keep these men and women safe and to keep us safe.
We have a very low rating.
And, and at the end of the day, what you want is a good rating, because the better the fire protection, the cheaper the insurance.
Okay, so I got it backwards. The better the rating, the lower the insurance rate.
Well, actually, you're right. It kind of works in reverse.
Okay.
But don't let the numbers fool you. What you want is a good, strong fire department, because that lowers the risk for the insurance companies, and the insurance companies can then lower the rate to you.
Okay. All right. So you'll be overseeing that also.
Well, the fire service is independent, but ISO has to spend a lot of time in my office if I'm successful tomorrow, and we pray we will be.
Okay. What have I missed? Because I know there's a lot in what you
Industrial Loan Commissioner. The Industrial Loan Commissioner. So back in the 50s, there was people would borrow money from their employer at the factory. And like if you worked in an industry, textile, you would go borrow money. And so the government decided that they needed to regulate it, and they did, and they do. And so basically, when you see these independent finance companies on the street, like Sunset Finance or Sterling Finance, or name one, those are all audited and regulated by this office. So you're a banker, you're a fireman, and you're an insurance guy. And you're a consumer protection guy. That's probably the most important part of this job, is that you're supposed to be there to fight for the consumers whenever they're not getting treated fairly by their insurance company.
And this is a state entity, so...
And Georgia's the 8th most populous state in the nation.
10-point-something million.
And it's growing. I mean, I think we're moving
Are you
up.
concerned that it's growing seemingly more in the metro area?
Well, I think that's not unusual. But, Georgia has an extremely large metro area. Mm-hmm. Matter of fact, Georgia, on the media side, has one of the largest DMAs in the country, just geographically.
Right.
It's a huge, huge geography.
Okay, you got 60 seconds. Ask for the vote.
Well, let me first say thank you to everybody who supported me. And let me say to all of you, please pray for our country. This election is critical. And I happen to think Brian Kemp ought to be governor, and the Republican ticket ought to be elected. But we are in a critical position. I'm excited to see people turning out to vote. That's a good thing. But I would ask people to go to my website, check jimbeckforgeorgia.com. Contact us if you have questions, if we can help you with anything. I really believe the greatest compliment my wife paid me one time is she said, "You're a promise keeper when promise keeping isn't cool." And so what I want to do is be a promise keeper for the people of Georgia, and a promise keeper. So when you buy that insurance policy, you get what you pay for, because that's only the right thing to do.
The best slogan: promises made, promises kept.
Not a bad one, is it?
Yeah.
We all kind of live our life like that way. It'd be a better world.
Thank you to Jim Beck, candidate for Insurance and Safety Fire Commissioner for the great state of Georgia. Remember to vote if you haven't already. Vote tomorrow. Thank you for listening to Community Voice, brought to you by Tanner Health System here on WLBB Carrollton.